Hello, everyone. Welcome to NB Geese Let's Talk 10 Forward Roundtable. I am honored, and I'm going to fix this because we need to make sure we put the right people next to each other. I am honored to have my excellent set of co hosts with me. The man who makes Twitter trolls cry and mops the floors with their tears, Jack Beers!
Woo!
Hello, hello, bows.
And a new person, a person who has recently come in my stream. She is Jack Beers' girlfriend, but that is not the important part. The important part is she's strong, she's independent, she's opinionated. She is what we call in the geek community a strong, powerful woman, Alicia AVP.
Hi!
And welcome, Mrs. Watchtower. So,
Hi,
folks,
Chloe.
Oh, that's Chloe. That's a friend of yours. Hi,
Yes.
Chloe. Nice to meet you. So, what we're doing today is we're going to talk about history of film. We're still kind of in the 30s. We're working out our themes for how we want to do this. And I got to take my glasses off because, unfortunately, I can't stand the glare. I apologize for my voice, folks. I'm a little medicated due to I broke my toe yesterday. I had a fight with a washing machine, and despite my best effort, I lost. So it is what it is. But the point is, we are actually hitting into a point we're going to talk about certain movies, and we're hitting in the 30s area where Technicolor came into play, which is really important because that is when, color came in and things really started to change. Who the fuck? What? Williams, I'm not a weird troll. You're a talk. Okay. Did you really have to say that 3 times?
4.
4.
I think it's a
5. Listen, or whatever.
troll.
Hey, I will boot your ass. I got no problem booting your ass if you're going to be a problem. You will not. This is the key thing. You will not disrespect my panel. You will not disrespect the people who are in the chat. If that is a problem for you, you need to fucking go somewhere else. Hey, my man from Ireland, Potato Ribbon. Love you, buddy.
Hey, Potato.
Okay. That guy's gone.
You need to ban Batman, too, in here. He's spamming it, too.
Why is it telling me I can't block this guy? Whoever the fuck you are, you come in here and try to troll me, you're out of your mind. You're not going to troll my panel. My panel is better than you.
Dude!
Christ, fucker. Get over it. Boy, this little bitch is determined. All right, fuck this troll. Let's get into the important things of our subject. Let's talk about the history of film. You guys, we talked about it the other day. And by the way, little bastard, you keep coming back. I'm just going to keep banning you. You can come up with any name handle you want. I'm just going to fucking ban your sorry ass no matter what. Fuck off. Find somebody else to troll. You ain't going to do it. Man right there, the man right there, and the woman right there, and me right here. We don't take shit from you fucking cunts. So, if you can't hear this, let me turn it up for you. Jesus Christ, this guy is determined.
Wow! Jeez, we eat you guys for breakfast.
Jeez, I haven't had this many. I haven't had a person troll me like this in forever. Actually, I've never had this. What'd you do, Jack? Did you piss somebody off, or did I piss somebody off?
I don't know. I would ignore him. I would just keep
we're
blocking
gonna-
him without
guys,
talking
guys,
about him.
Hey, from here
Yeah.
on out, this is either one guy or somebody with an Autobot thing going, and he's just
Mm-hmm.
blah blah fucking blah repeating the same shit. So we're gonna ignore this motherfucker. He
Right.
wants to troll us. He ain't got the time. Already blocked him a few times. We can go from there. So I'm gonna get up real quick. I gotta get something real quick. But other than that, Jack, Alicia, let's go into and tell the stream what we are talking about today, the movies and stuff. And I will be right back.
Okay,
Sure.
well, do you want to start first or me? I mean, like I started with the
Uh,
1930, so
yeah, you have the 1930s ones, and mine are up to the 40s, up to the 60s.
okay. So I'll start with mine. We'll start with All Quiet on the Western Front.
Okay.
It's basically a German movie about the Germans' experience during World War One, and yeah, that'll be the first one we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is going to be kind of a funny one, Reefer Madness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I mean, it's basically a propaganda film about the dangers of marijuana, and they completely exaggerate the dangers of marijuana, which is
Yes.
what makes it unintentionally funny. And
Yes.
then, there's after that, there's three movies that came out in 1939 that are just classics.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, of course, is The Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
Um, yes, that's the second one is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is really good. It's in its own. It's about a senator
Yes.
going to Washington, realizing it's not all you know patriotism and hope and
Yes.
love and stuff. It's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one that came out, and actually like it was like it ended up winning like most of the Oscars that year was Gone with the Wind. Now all three of
Yes.
these got Oscars, but Gone with the Wind got most of them. Like
Mm-hmm.
if Mr. Smith Goes to Washington got nominated for one thing, most likely it went to Gone with the Wind.
Yes, it did. Yes, it
Yes,
did.
it
Yeah.
did. Yeah. Well, which one do you want to start with? Because they all have deep impacts on cinema history.
Well,
So which one do you want to start with?
let me start with All Quiet on the Western Front then.
Okay,
Um,
this is one I have not seen yet, but I have read the book.
okay, yeah. So the novel came out the year before, and it's by someone named Eric Maria Marquis, and he was a German soldier in World War One, and so it's not exactly autobiographical, but it's about like what the Germans experienced during World War One, and so it starts with some like some guy in a school, basically, you know, talking these young people into signing up for to join the military,
Service.
right? And so
Mm-hmm.
he whips them into a frenzy, and they all go and they march out to go get recruited, and then they find themselves in boot camp, and then they find themselves in the middle of the war, and they show you like a lot. They dwell on a lot of the moments. Like there's a moment where they're stuck in a cave, and they keep hearing like explosions, and it's driving them nuts. Stuff like that. And then at some point, the one of the main characters goes back home, and of course he's being hailed. He's being hailed as a hero and everything. And then he goes back to that same school where that same teacher like talked him into signing up, and he starts talking. At first that teacher's like, "Oh, like come in," but then he starts talking about like the death and everything. Right? This was one of those movies that displayed the symptoms of PTSD 50 years before PTSD was officially like a
Oh.
medical thing.
Okay.
Yes, it did. And one of the things about it, this was actually a book on when I was in the Marine Corps. There
Mhm.
was a Commandant's reading list that came out, and this was one of the movies or books that was recommended reading, and I had read it. Um, and what this movie does is or this book does, and the way you make it sound, the movie says, is dealing with the grapplings of the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
See, when they're in that cave and all that shit is going on. They don't know what's going on outside. They have an
Right.
idea, but it's all up here. That is psychological.
Hmm.
And that is the unknown, especially when you're in a combat situation with the unknown is the absolute worst fear.
Yes.
Exactly. And
Yeah, please continue.
so they made the movie in 1930. It was Universal who produced it. It was directed by Louis Milestone. Um, and it got a lot of awards in the U.S. It was nominated for Best Cinematography, Best Writing, and it actually won Best Director and Outstanding Production.
Oh.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, and
Nice.
it was actually the first it was actually the first Best Picture winner that was based on a novel. And
Really?
yeah.
Hmm.
Now outside of America, a lot of people didn't like it. Like the SS, before they became powerful. They uh, when the movie came out, they would yell in the middle of the movie to like distract people. They would release stink bombs and mice in the theater. They eventually went to attacking the audience. Basically,
Oh wow.
they
Basically, what
thought
happened, basically, what you're saying is what was going on in what would now be at that time Nazi Germany. In watching this film, they wanted to dissuade
they
people from watching it because this movie, if it's anywhere near the book, shows very key factors about war, the constant boredom and the constant fear. Two
mhm,
factors that are common, in my 20 years of service, my wife's 20 years of service. Uh, and then it really hit on the worst fear, the fear of the unknown. I'll give you an example. When my wife and I were talking one day, I was outside the library at the Air Force Base I was at. My wife was in Afghanistan at Kandahar, and all of a sudden, the sirens went off. And I knew what that meant. That meant there was an attack on the base. For the
Mm-hmm.
next two, she's like, I gotta go. Hangs up the phone. Next 2 hours, all I'm doing is living in fear. I could not, until she called me back.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie probably, and I'm gonna have to watch it, and I do mean to. But based on the book, it sounds like it does do a good adaptation of the book, and it's faithful to talking about the boredom, the fear, and especially it's one of those areas where it really hits on the unknown, and that's really the biggest fear is the unknown of what can happen when you don't know what the enemy's doing. That is scary as fuck.
Hmm. Okay,
So please,
so
yeah, please continue. I'm
that's
providing
fine.
my military experience to say why I understand this.
Right, I get it. So the next film I want to talk about was Reefer Madness. Like as I said before, it's a propaganda film. It was financed by a church group, and its purpose was to uh, make people, parents and children, fear marijuana. And but what they end up doing is they exaggerate everything.
Oh
Um,
jeez.
so the movie is about like a couple of, there's, they're like a group of good kids or whatever, and they have, they eventually fall into the marijuana, and suddenly they like run people over and they start fights, and they're, what I mean? Yeah. So like they're all aggressive and stuff like that. Um, it's funny.
What drug were they? What was this shit laced with?
It's you're right, exactly. In one case, like this guy hallucinates, you know what I mean, and then starts fight. It's really, it starts a fight, and then somebody produces a gun, and then there's a shot that rings out, and it kills the girl that's whose girlfriend, and
What
because he's
the?
hot, even though he wasn't the one who shot the gun, they like he's high, so they give him the gun and be like, he was like, you shot her, you shot her. He's high, so he doesn't know, so he thinks she shot her.
Oh no.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. For those of you who don't know, I'm a pothead. Jack is about it. You'll see Jack light up a joint right now. I'm going to get some weed tomorrow. Let me explain something to you. I grew up around weed. Yes, I spent 20 years in the military and didn't touch it during the entire time because it was illegal and it would cost me my job.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. All that shit he's describing, I lived around my mother smoking weed. Her friends, I saw it all the time. There was never any fear of what they would do smoking weed. You know what would scare the shit out of me? When they were drinking.
Yeah.
Because that was unpredictable. They tried to label weed as a gateway drug. What? To my fucking fridge?
Exactly.
Exactly. One of the reasons why I got off my anxiety med I was on is because now I have access to weed and it doesn't cause me any of the side effects. Okay, I'll give you the great joke. You know why nobody ever ODs on weed? Because you put 100 joints in front of a person. By the time they hit that fourth joint, they've already called the pizza guy, grabbed the cat, and are curled up on their bed on the couch going to sleep.
Right.
Weed is not a gateway drug. Weed was never a gateway drug. I ever saw anything. The only reason why anybody tried something else was because they wanted to. It wasn't because of weed. I had one bad experience on weed, and May was my best friend, and it turned out it was laced with LSD.
Uh-oh.
Oops. Well,
yeah.
He didn't know. At the time.
Here's the thing. He didn't know.
Oh, okay.
He didn't know. He knows I would never. He was my best friend for a long time. Still a good friend of mine. He would never have done that intentionally to me.
Right.
He saw how I was. He's like, dude, I don't know what the fuck was in that. Which later we found out the guy was lacing it with LSD. He's like, I didn't know, buddy. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Said, I know you're sorry. I believe you. So yeah, a propaganda movie like.
So as ridiculous as it was, though, like at the time, it did have an effect, and there was it's called the Marijuana Tax Act, but it's essentially what banned marijuana. It was passed the following year in 1937.
Oh. Okay.
And then
yes, I know that.
And then throughout the 40s and 50s, it was screened. That movie was screened across the U.S. as like different titles and stuff like that. It eventually lost its copyright status. Okay, yeah. So it eventually lost its copyright status, and in the 1970s, there's a guy named Keith Stroop. He was the founder of an organization called Normal. Normal was an initiative to legalize marijuana in California, which it eventually succeeded in. But yes, so this guy actually found a copy of this movie in the Library of Congress and bought a print of it and started raising money for his initiative by screening the movie for laughs.
Wow.
And also to teach people like how far they went with the propaganda.
Yeah, well, that sounds interesting because, yes, this sounds like a propaganda movie. Because you and I, Jack, from your own experience using marijuana, and you know me, I use it. Yes, I've had a couple of times where I've been a little too loopy to be in a show because I was tired, but I've never gotten violent. I've never had an hallucination. The only thing I've ever wanted to do was go raid my goddamn fridge for like a bag of chips or something. That's it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've had some of my best calming. It's a calming effect. It has a calming effect to it. Sorry.
It does.
So, like, for example, I've had times where I've been high and I've started thinking about things I want to do with my show. And it's funny because it's like, yes, I'm high, but I'm actually focused on something, which is, I never did any other drug other than that one time, the LSD, which was an accident. I've never done it because, quite frankly, I don't feel the desire to do these crazy drugs. I mean, I remember back in the 80s they were really hammering what marijuana was on TV. And I'm like, my mom smokes it. My stepdad smokes it. Her best friend smokes it. Her best friend, who I've known most of my life, all of them do it. Hell, I've gotten high with my mother. Hell, when I retired from the military, the first time I got high was with my mother. Again, it was never an issue. It's not. It's not that thing. It's not a dangerous drug. And when they call it a gateway drug, I thought they used that to scare people because I'm like, yeah, it was a gateway to maybe my pantry. That's about it. There was no reason to go any further.
Well,
now whereas Jack uses more flour. Next time I go to the dispensary, I prefer the vapes. And my wife, she smokes some pot with her ex-husband. And she told me she was never going to smoke it again. And I said, okay. I told her, when I get out, I'm going to smoke it. There were a couple times I asked her, would you like any? She said no. I never pushed it. One day, she said, can I hit some of that weed? And I was like, I wasn't a prick or anything. I was like, yeah, sure, here you go. And she prefers the vape over the flour. Now, I do want to buy some flour because I'd like to bake it in some stuff because I've had the edibles recently, and I do find that to have a very nice high to it. And Jack, you probably know this, and Alicia, I don't know what your experience in marijuana is, but that body high, that'll put you out like a light. You're just so relaxed, you want to. So yeah, it was definitely a propaganda movie because it was bullshit. I know me. I know. I grew up around it. You probably grew up around it, and that's not what it was. Like I said, I never worried when my parents were smoking weed. I worried when they drank.
Right.
So anyway, I know I got a little off topic there, but I kind of want to hit home there about you talking about, this being propaganda and you and I being, well, for lack of a better term, potheads, actually say the truth about what marijuana is. It is not a bad drug. And actually, I think I remember watching a documentary on how drugs became illegal, and one of them was marijuana. And honestly, it was mainly about the hemp aspect of it, cutting into competition. So, Jack, we've talked about two movies. You did Alicia AVP. What movie would you like to start off with?
So I'm going to start with the classic Casablanca, 1942.
Oh, play it. That is one of the most misquoted movies I know because it is. Play it again, Sam. That's not what she said. She said,
play it, Sam. Yes, exactly.
She said, play it, Sam. Play it again.
And he says, you played it for her, you play it for me. So yes.
All right, let's talk about Casablanca, a masterpiece, in my opinion.
So this one was made during the war era and everything like that. So there wasn't a whole lot of trivia that I found out about. But one of the things is that I told Jack about this when we saw this movie together. So I said, this movie has had multiple endings, and they didn't know how it was going to end originally. And so when the movie was released into theaters was the ending that they finally released to the public. So there was one ending where Rick goes with her. There's a different ending where he didn't go with her. There was an ending where neither one of them went on the plane. There was multiple endings. So eventually they came up with the ending that they did. From what I've heard, that basically the ending they came up with is just what they came up with that day. I think they wrote it that same day.
PCAT, one of my original and favorite supporter. I love you, man. You're great. let's where is Casablanca?
So, and the story is in Morocco, and that is
Exactly.
actually, and that's a French culture and stuff like that. I mean, that's the reason why we hear a lot of different languages spoken in there. We hear the French national anthem spoken, and we also hear a little bit of Spanish in there. So it depends on where you go in Morocco, but Morocco is typically a French colony and everything like that. And
And
go ahead.
what is Casa? Oh, sorry. I think you were going there.
So
Casablanca, if I'm not mistaken, means castle.
White Castle, actually.
Yes,
White
White
Castle.
Castle.
Correct. That's
Yes,
what it.
White Castle.
Now I'm hungry.
I'm thankful to have a White Castle near me for the first time in my life since I left the Midwest. But yeah, you know what? They missed an opportunity. They shouldn't have done White Castle. They should have done Casablanca.
Yes.
But please continue, Alicia.
So one thing you guys may not know is that, well, Jack knows it, but the thing is there is a spoof of, believe it or not, of Casablanca known as Carrot Blanca with Bugs Bunny.
No, I remember that.
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah.
Hi, Max.
Hi, Max. Nice to see you. So yeah, there's a Carrot Blanca. One of the things that's pretty cool is, so we all know that there's a lot of Nazis in this movie. But the thing is that I found out is these are not actually Nazis. The people that are portraying these Nazis are actually German Jews. So they're actually playing their enemies in many, many ways.
No way.
Yes way.
Oh, I did not know that.
I was actually surprised when I found that out myself. I was like, what? But yeah.
I don't blame you.
It blew my mind. Also, his cafe was one of the few original sets that's in the movie. All the others are recycled from other films and stuff like that. But that cafe is just one of the few original ones out there. And it's funny that we were talking about that scene saying, "Play it, Sam." So Dooley Wilson, I always assumed that he was actually a piano player. No, Dooley Wilson was actually a professional drummer. And so they had someone that would dub in his finger playing on the piano. So that's one reason why we hardly ever get any close-ups of his hands at the particular.
Oh.
So yeah, we had someone else filling in for that. It was just making it look like, oh, he's playing the piano. No, that is not Dooley Wilson. That is actually someone else.
That's a double.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Casablanca was, and I only saw it about maybe 10 years ago was when I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just had a beautiful story. I mean, the characters, the cast, the story will always have friends.
We'll always have Paris. Yes.
The ending with the police officer. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yes.
I mean, I had heard these terms throughout my life. I'd heard these things. But, I'd heard "Play It Again, Sam." And then when I watched the movie, I'm like, y'all been saying it wrong. It's "Play It. Play It Again, Sam." And I was like, why are we getting around? But, we misquote things many times. And it really was just beautiful. The visuals, the acting, the writing, the directing was just well done.
Yes.
And we have an appreciation for film that, I think a lot of people don't have. And we respect the past. So please continue.
So the second movie I'm going to cover is It's a Wonderful Life. I know it's not Christmas season, but this one was made in 1946.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yes, and Donna Reed.
Oh, I'm going to tell you this right now. I need to tell you this, guys, because I said this to my wife a long time ago. She said something to me. I said, "You're a regular Donna Reed." And she looked at me and she goes, "You know who Donna Reed is?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I know who Donna Reed is. I watched her on Nick at Night." I mean, I knew it. So, yeah, please continue.
So this movie, It's a Wonderful Life, was actually filmed during a hot winter summer of 1946. It was the hottest summer on record at the time. And they had it filmed and stuff like that. So it's one of the hottest records. They actually had to shut down production when they were filming that movie. They actually had to shut down production at least one day because the heat was that severe for everybody. And so they stopped filming one. Mm-hmm. And the story originally came from a Christmas card and everything. So the writer who wrote it actually wrote a Christmas card out on a Christmas card, sent it out to a couple of friends and everything. And they said, "Oh, this is a really cool story idea. Why don't you send it out to the Hollywood executives?" And so eventually that story became It's a Wonderful Life. And they developed it into a script. Now, I found some other cool information. The pool that we see in the scene where Jimmy Stewart is dancing with Donna Reed and everything like that pool is actually still in use at that high school. That is basically, so 54 years later, if you go to that particular high school, they still use that high school pool and everything like that. So yeah. And now Bedford Falls is not a real place, folks. Bedford Falls is actually one of the largest sets that was made on record. They built it in 2 months and it covered 4 acres of land at the time.
Max Sterling, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Alicia AVP. Let this guy troll us all he wants. Fuck him, fuck her, fuck it, whatever the little punk ass bitch is. We don't care. We're ignoring it. And I think that's what's pissing it off the most.
Mm-hmm.
So, that said, I will only show tags from people that I know. This little bastard wants to play games. We're not playing the game. We're going to continue with our show. Anyway, Alicia, please continue. I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring that out.
I understand. So here's the thing about the story about It's a Wonderful Life. It actually even passed through the hands of Howard Hughes at one point. It actually sat in his hands and he said, do I want to use this and make a story out of this? Nah. So he skipped it at one point. Also, Uncle Billy, Thomas Mitchell, who is a wonderful, wonderful actor. Now, I can't picture him as this, guys. But if they had recast it, Uncle Billy was going to play, drum roll, please, Mr. Potter.
No.
He was going to play Mr. Potter. So, yeah. And here's another cool bit of trivia. Now, we all love Jimmy Stewart. We all love him as George Bailey. But who else could have played George Bailey?
I'm going to say this. If I was going to make a comparison, the new movie Dune.
Okay.
And I'm not going into trying to transition there. Jason Momoa played my favorite character in Dune of Duncan, Idaho. I cannot think of a better person after watching him play that role. James Stewart was a phenomenal actor. He was a phenomenal actor in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. He was a phenomenal actor in A Christmas Story. Because we need to remember, in that story, he was about to commit suicide.
Yes, he was.
Which is not something that was seen. He was at his lowest point. That's how it started. And James Stewart put that thing, as someone who's dealt with PTSD and dealt with people who have thought about committing suicide and know people who committed suicide, I empathized with the character because
Mm-hmm.
I understood it. I used to, a very long time ago, until I went into rehab. I used to have a very negative opinion of people who commit suicide. I
Mm-hmm.
thought they were selfish, arrogant, self-righteous pricks who didn't care about anybody else. When I went to rehab because of my alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
I met people who had talked about committing suicide, and I heard their stories. And for the first time in my life, I empathized. I understood, and it changed my perspective. And it's interesting because it was after that I saw that movie where he was thinking of committing suicide. He really thought this was the end. There was nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
And this was his only way out.
Right.
It you know, and at that time in that era, that was not something people talked about. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's something people really understood. When it comes to suicide, my first duty station in the Marine Corps was, and I'm closing my eyes because I need to think about this. The first week I was at Camp Lejeune, one of our members who I never met took his web belt and hung himself. That was my first week. That was my first experience. And we had a man named Kane. He was a good friend of mine later on down the road. He violated orders because they wouldn't let him go to the funeral. And he violated those orders to go to the funeral. And he accepted the consequences of his actions because he felt what he did was right. Because he wanted honor. Sorry. He wanted to honor his friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I bring a lot of this stuff up, because a lot of the movies that really have those powerful impacts, like we're talking about here, they're powerful because despite how old they are, there's really a message that we can always see and we can relate to and empathize. I didn't empathize with suicide until I went to rehab. But once I went to rehab and I heard the stories, I didn't agree, but I empathized. That was the first time. And it changed me. And that's a good thing. Sorry, I know we've kind of gone from movies, but
That's fine.
this is the
It was a
I'm
serious. It was a serious thing to talk about because let's face it, this movie does address suicide. I mean, we don't think about it because it's not your typical Christmas movie because it deals with suicide, like you pointed out. Yes. So, Henry Fonda actually was considered to play the part of George at one point. So that would have been interesting if they had recast it as Henry Fonda instead of Jimmy Stewart. So we all hear that line, classic line that Zuzu always says, teacher says when a bell rings, an angel has got his wings. Do you know how many bell rings that we hear in that movie?
no.
We have 42. There's 42 angels that got their wings according to that movie. So yeah. But PCAT asked a question in the chat that I'm going to address. So he said, why did the movie get public domain kind of thing, they had lost their copyright license basically. And so that's the reason why it's now public domain, where they can release it wherever they want to. If they want to put it on NBC, they can put it on NBC. And so the license is basically free reign.
Okay, I want to stop you real quick. I'm going to answer this. I don't play games. I'm the guy who docks you and will snipe you from down the street. Army trained asshole. You can come to us on your own peril. I'm serious. You want to come next to me? You want to come next to my friends?
Oh no, I think he's
He's talking about the troll. He's talking about the troll.
Yeah.
Oh, he's talking about the
Yeah.
troll. Okay.
he's not talking about us. No,
No,
don't worry
not about us. It's the troll. It's the troll. He's dealing with the troll. He's dealing with.
Okay, I'm sorry if I misinterpreted that. Do you know this person?
I do.
Jack does.
I
Jack
do.
does.
He's a good friend of mine, actually.
Okay. I'm sorry. I
No worries.
apologize, Max.
Should be cool.
Sterling. But we have had a big issue with assholes, with this asshole trolling us. I apologize.
Yeah.
I own up. Hey, Alicia, Jack, I know we normally go an hour, but my medication is really hitting me after I broke my toe. So, would you be okay with us continuing with this another week?
That's fine.
Sure, that's
I'm
fine.
sorry. I'm starting to talk in cursive.
We understand.
It's fine.
I apologize. You guys have been great. You've been great co-hosts. And with that, folks, peace and long life.
Goodbye.
You wanna see strong men and women? You got it right here. That's all you need.